Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. It's been a while, but we're back with another exclusive mini-series. Our mini-series are always a listener favorite, and I absolutely love getting the chance to get under the skin of organizations and find out what really makes them tick. So I'm super excited to be bringing you a brand new series, and this one is in partnership with one of the industry's biggest brands. Well, who is it? It's market-leading logistics industry tech provider WiseTech Global. We had founder and CEO Richard White on the show back in June, and it went down a storm with all of our listeners and over on social media. It was fun and fascinating in equal measures, and it left all of us wanting more. So over the course of our brand new 4-part series, we're going to dive even deeper. We'll be talking about why optimized and actionable data is more powerful than mere visibility, and why organizations need good data, not lots of data. We'll be revealing the true cost of compliance and changing the way we think about risk in logistics. And we'll be reflecting on the cultural and human challenges that come along with digitization. Today, in episode 1, I'm joined by Jean Gander, General Manager of Global Sales at WiseTech Global, and Amna Shah, Principal and CFO at AHS Consulting. And we are going to be diving into the complex world of supply chain visibility. What does it mean and why is it so important? What impacts are we seeing on the industry after several years of heavy investment? What are the barriers to achieving true end-to-end visibility? And what exactly is WiseTech and their powerful CargoWise platform doing to tackle those barriers? Visibility has to be one of my favorite supply chain conversations right now. So I'm really looking forward to this one. So welcome to the show, Jean and Amna.
Sarah, thank you. It's a pleasure to work with you again.
Thank you. Same here. It's my first time, but it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really excited to be kicking off a brand new mini series with both of you. And we're talking about visibility. It's such a huge topic. Everybody's kind of using the word. So we need to dive into this a little bit more. And I've noticed how the conversations around visibility really are changing. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with some introductions. So Jean, can you let us know who you are, what you do at WiseTech, and maybe remind the audience, who is WiseTech? What do you do?
Certainly. So I've been with WiseTech, parts of CargoWise, for the last 22 years. I originally started as a young international forwarder and then got into the log tech sector before log tech was cool, back when we were digitizing the official airline guide cargo products. And now I'm managing global sales for CargoWise, the product of WiseTech Global. And to understand who CargoWise is, I mean, we're the market leader in international logistics, customs, brokers, freight forwarders, warehouse operators. Basically anything that a logistics service professional needs to do, they can do it on CargoWise as far as a global system across 160 different countries. So
Amazing.
That's a little bit of insight to CargoWise and myself. Thanks,
yeah,
Sarah.
and it's like a household name here in supply chain. I mean, I don't know who doesn't know about WiseTech and CargoWise. So really excited to have you back. And Amna, tell us about yourself and about your company, AHS Consulting.
Thank you. So basically, right as Jean was getting into the WiseTech world, I was also actually getting introduced to WiseTech. It's been about 21 years since 2002, since I've been familiar with e-forwarders and EDI Enterprise, and then CargoWise One. It's been a long time working with the software, different softwares, which is now CargoWise One, which is the most powerful tool that WiseTech has to offer. And a little bit about me. I'm a principal as well as the CFO of AHS Consulting. We are a freight forwarding consultancy company. We are primarily a partnership with CargoWise, a service partnership, a technical partnership, a business partnership. So we have kind of conquered all the areas. We are a platinum partner and all the competencies out there. And we have been at it since last 21 years. So I was involved in the initial development of the accounting module, working with Sarbanes-Oxley, gap compliance, to what it is today in the accounting part of the system.
Amazing. And I actually spoke about the partnership program with Richard on the other podcast. So if anybody is looking for more information on that, go and check that episode out. Now, Amna, you've worked with WiseTech in a few different ways, like you said, over the last 21 years. And now, AHS Consulting is a CargoWise partner. Why have you worked with WiseTech for such a long time? Talk to us about the partnership. What does that look like?
Absolutely.
What's the ROI and benefit from being a CargoWise partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will tell you from my experience since 1999, I was working in logistics, imports, exports, customs brokerage, kind of like, I had an inquisitive mind. I wanted to know it all, what goes, like I was so intrigued by the freight forwarding industry. So we were working off of a DOS-based system. And then I kind of fell into accounting. So we were working with reports and they were DOS-based reports. They were like this thick of reports that would come out of the system, and you would have to take a ruler and sit there and look at the financials, add them up manually, and then figure out what's your revenue, what's your cost, what's your gross profit. And then another software, we went from that DOS-based software to another software. And then when CargoWise was first introduced to us, and we're like automated reports in Excel, like that's great. So they had the operational reports, and I mean it was just like, oh my God, I don't have to sit there and look through these reports anymore.
Right.
And I mean, it opened a world of for imports and exports too, for operational purposes, like, having e-docs, having to be paperless. I mean, back then, that's when this all started. It's not new to CargoWise going paperless or having the e-docs. It's been there forever. It's just been people don't use it as efficiently as it needs to, or it could be used. And it's an archaic industry. To get people out of that mindset takes a long time.
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw CargoWise, I'm like, this is the way to go. We're like 10, 20 years ahead of itself in this software. So if I were to embrace it and work with it and see what I can do more with this, and even to make it a better software, like giving feedback is one of my primary causes dear to my heart. Like, because whenever I feel like something isn't working the right way or it needs to be improvised, then obviously I'll provide my feedback. But that was the start of it. And I think there was no looking back. I've embraced the system and basically took off with it.
Amazing. I can almost see you having that ruler in your hand and then going with the WiseTech or the CargoWise system and throwing that ruler in the air.
Yes, yes, it was tragic. Yes.
I love that story. Now, today we're talking about visibility. So, what is supply chain visibility? Why is it important? What does it mean when we're thinking about the powerful global logistics platform CargoWise? Gene?
So with visibility, it's more than knowing where your freight is on a colorful dashboard. It's intelligent and actionable information. So I think that's the big difference. People look with visibility as a silver bullet solution, but what they did with it separated the value of what they were getting with it. I mean, visibility in its rarest form is a commodity in order to automate an actionable item. And that's where we add value. Visibility without execution, I think, is just window dressing. Because CargoWise is a heavy execution system, that's where that container automation visibility play becomes so effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And visibility means different things to different people. And so I think even before looking at a platform to solve your visibility challenges, you need to know what you're looking for, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And that's a good point, Sarah. We can take a look at visibility two different ways. Visibility is logistics service professional in the back office managing freight. Where is that freight? How does that delivery of that freight according to the expected time, look? And then as a professional being able to manage to that time. Then there's also that, forwarder's customer who's looking for a visibility solution as far as they're facing of everything that they see in that forwarder system. So yes, you're right. There's two different ways to take a look at that visibility of depending on who you are.
Amna, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, I think before, when we were working off of a desk as an importer or somebody who would be a liaison for an importer, I had worked that desk as an import, manager who would actually look at like, okay, what's coming in? And my customers calling me all the time, asking me where their freight was.
Yeah.
Came along Amazon, now everybody has access to visibility of where their stuff is at any given point in time. It's a bigger picture. And when people had their toilet paper disappear, it became even a bigger issue.
Yes, it did.
So I think it's more under the microscope now than it was ever. And I think everybody just wants things like, they need to know where it is yesterday, where it was this morning, is it on its way to their home right now, the last mile delivery. So I think it's a big one nowadays, especially, given that everybody is inquisitive and they want to have return on what did they just buy? Like, when is it going to arrive? When can they start using it?
Yeah. Well, and I remember sitting at the import desk and I got a phone call from this lady and she was like, why can I not see where my goods are on the water? There should be a map and like, something telling me where exactly my shipment was. And this was, I don't know, this was a good 7 years ago. So we didn't even really have it. But even back then, people were like, why do we not have this type of visibility? And so if you're a logistics provider and you don't have access to something like that to be able to provide the visibility that your client is looking for, no matter what questions they're asking, right? Because visibility means different things to different people. You're kind of behind and you need to really be able to have those answers for your clients. Now, according to a recent research report that the CargoWise team conducted in partnership with Reuters, you interviewed 475 plus logistics professionals globally. 29% of logistics organizations say that increased visibility is their number one supply chain priority. I mean, that story that I just told you, that does not surprise me. And it also talks about how a huge 78% invested in new visibility tools and tech since 2020. Why is that? How much can we thank the pandemic for when it comes to this new level of commitment and investment in visibility? And I think back to that story that I just told you. I mean, that was probably more like 10 years ago. Even 10 years ago, we wanted this information. But now we're heavily investing as of 2020. So talk to us about that, Jean.
So you're exactly right. I mean, with the supply chain crisis, the pandemic, if everything had arrived when it was supposed to, we wouldn't need visibility. I'm telling you, it's going to be there next Tuesday. It's going to be there next Tuesday. But when Tuesday becomes Wednesday, that's when we need visibility. And I think the thinking about it, the supply chain crisis brought that to the forefront. I mean, the times of the elapsed time of containers moving and arriving and the inventories and supply chain being in such a crunch that Tuesday to Wednesday, became, Friday and Monday, and the impact of that became greater. So everyone was looking for, the visibility, silver bullet management, and some of it may have not been heavily scrutinized of, look, I did something. Now, Amna said earlier that what people are also looking for is the return for that. It's easy to sell log tech with implied benefits, but after you've been doing it 20 years, you've got to be delivering year after year. And I think some of these people started to look at, okay, what are we getting as far as deliverables on the decisions that we made in the past? And it's being heavily scrutinized now as far as depending on what they're looking for in visibility.
Yeah. And I use an example during the pandemic. I was waiting for a couch and I think it took like 12 months to get to me.
Oh, wow.
And, I was on the phone as a logistics professional and I was like, I know how this works. Why is this taking so long? And why don't you have visibility into exactly where my order is? Because in 2021, I would expect us to have that. And this was a very large retailer in Canada. And I would have expected them as a logistics and supply chain professional putting pressure on the retailers because we know what's actually happening and what they're actually missing, which is the software and the visibility to be able to answer my questions. Amna, what do you think about what's driving this visibility? Was it the pandemic or was it kind of before the pandemic?
I think it was pretty much the pandemic, as I use my toilet paper example. When it impacts the masses is when they realize, hey, there's something called supply chain and there's something called visibility. Alongside supply chain, all these containers we see on the street actually mean something to us. And then that's when everything kind of hit the roof. Like, hey, there is something called supply chain. A lot of investments came in to the industry at that time, given that now people really realize this is actually a full industry where, you work with freight forwarders, the freight forwarders work with the, warehouses, all of that. I think it did really take off during the pandemic. Before that, it was always a, requirement, but nobody wanted to embrace it. Now
Right.
the consumer requires it. The consumer is saying demands it really. There's no way around it. You have to give them the visibility, and that's why there's a huge investment in this industry for that exact same purpose. And the freight forwarder can't get away from there.
Hmm. Yeah. And so let's talk about what we're seeing in terms of the impacts. How has this level of investment in visibility tech over the last 3 years started to impact the industry? Because I'm assuming that we're seeing it as of now, some of that investment being returned in a variety of different ways. So Amna, I'm going to start with you and then we'll go to Jean.
Okay. So what I've been seeing, and basically through WiseTech Global too, I mean, we have the inception of Neo, which is coming through, I hear, through the obviously stockholder updates. It's been a long time coming, but now we're finally seeing that it's gonna be there. So it's going to give people more visibility to what CargoWise has to offer. We've always had global container tracking, links with airlines. And then we had Flight Aware to go and check on where the airline or air freight was at any given point in time. We could ping radars of ships to get like where the ships are, like, and we built something in-house at AHS too to, kind of fill the void for some of our customers to make sure that we could actually supply them when the containers, I mean, it's expensive to
Yeah.
ping the radars of these ships, and we had to control the cost for our customers, saying, hey, we can't do that every time somebody sits there and click, click, click and wants to ping that ship. So there's a lot of costs associated with it because it's an archaic and industry. Nobody has really thought of these things, and now they're finally thinking it through and saying, okay, we can suppress this. We can say, okay, don't ping the ship. It's not going to move further for 4 hours. Let's just do it every 6 hours or 8 hours, and give the same ping that's going to be gone once to that ship. We're going to use it for multiple customers. So there's lots that goes into it, and then obviously knowing the industry, knowing how it all works helps tremendously. So that's where we come in. That's where I've seen, obviously, I don't want to diverse, like, go sidetrack this conversation, but there's a lot obviously we can talk about here.
Yeah, there is a ton to talk about. And it's that refresh button. I think that
Yes.
gets everybody, right?
Yes.
We just want to click the refresh button and hope that something new happens within
Yep.
those 2 minutes. Jean?
The ship inches like up or down.
Now, the impact I think we're looking for is the two questions that people are asking themselves. It's basically, how can I operate my business better today, and am I operating better than I did yesterday? And they're starting to scrutinize themselves as far as how they're using this, this visibility information. But they're looking for visibility on two fronts. Executionable action items. So how can I minimize my customer, my detention, demurrage, and deliver the service that we've committed to. And then the second thing is, the more they're executing, as far as I'm the logistics service provider, and I'm triggering this execution with these carriers and I'm getting this visibility back directly, it's a much better, granular, valuable level of data than what they're getting. They're just trying to harvest data out there in the open as far as what's happening. So we see more and more people, taking it to the execution level to get that visibility back.
Well, it's better conversation.
Yep. Yeah.
True, right? Like it's better conversation, not only internally, but externally. And I think the other thing too is the last couple of years have really shown us competitiveness within the logistics landscape. No longer are we just competing on price, we are competing on customer experience. And so the more investment that logistics providers, 3PLs, are making into visibility technology is going to increase their competitive advantage in the landscape, right? And it's going to enhance their customer experience. Logistics providers, the industry hasn't had to think too much about customer experience, but now they're demanding it, right? They're demanding these tools. They're demanding the visibility. They're demanding the provider to be able to have those conversations, bring the data to the table, right, Gene?
Exactly. And, and the shippers and the logistics providers have been searching to do this and find the right way to get there. There's been a lot of experimental investment, in the ever increasing log tech sector, as far as, what is that solution and how can that add value to my customers? And people were, taking a look at if there was a better way to do that out there. And it was easy to have that experimental investment, if we want to say that, when containers are moving at $20,000 a box. When the ocean rates are now at the pre-pandemic and, and maybe even leaner, there's not a whole lot of appetite for experimental investments.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for proven ROI that's going to give value to their customers and is going to have a return to them for what they're investing in. And I think that's probably the biggest shift we've seen in the last couple of years. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Amna.
No, I was saying yes, absolutely. That's absolutely what we're seeing too on our side. Obviously, we deal with customers around the world, and that's pretty common around every continent, everywhere, not just United States and Canada.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, Gene, in the fact that there are still, even though 78% are investing or have invested since 2020, there's still quite a few challenges and barriers to better visibility. Talk to us about what you're seeing. Why are people so hesitant in bringing or adopting this kind of, tool that can really enhance their business?
It's going through another phase of digital transformation. So change is tough. True. Change is tough in an organization, and it's tough with individuals. The human element can be is compelling or challenging than the technical element of, hey, let's make this work. So we see a couple of different things. If we don't have the firm commitment from upper management and they hold firm to that commitment, and rank and file see them flinch, then it's easy to back off of a digital transformation project like that. So it's basically takes commitment, and they really can't under-resource it either. It takes a bit of an effort to put in a new process, a new system. Amna lives that every day, and they've got to make sure that they're investing in it.
Well, and think about that, right? Everybody is tight on IT resources, or that's what I've been hearing. And that is definitely part of that challenge or barrier. Yes, we need this platform and this software. How long is it going to take us to onboard, right? And how much IT resources are we going to need? Amna, what are you seeing as far as challenges and barriers?
I think the human resource is a huge challenge. We see this all the time. It's not just with visibility. We see it just implementing a new system. Like, why do I have to learn a new system? I'm 2 months from my retirement or a year from my retirement. I don't want to learn a new system. So they'll go down, but they'll go down fighting. And until there's a big push from top down in that company, it doesn't go well. That project doesn't go very well, because if you have had human resources, or your team members that have been there forever and they've just done it a certain way, it's hard to get them out of how they've done it a certain way and get them to embrace new tools, new technology. And I think that is the biggest challenge in this industry, because we have our brokers that are they might have been licensed like in the 1950s, and they love using a DOS-based system, and that's what they do best because they love their tab button on their keyboard, and you can get them away from that to a click module, or it's just a variety of things. But it comes down and boils down to one thing, and it's the common factor is the human aspect of it, and not wanting to embrace the change or the challenges. The newer generation is pretty okay with it. They do it all the time. They go online and do these things, and they embrace it right away. But it's harder with the older population, and I see this all the time where my background is accounting now, because I have a master's and bachelor's in accounting and financial management. So I'll give you an example where a CFO would hold back the whole company because they're so used to a certain financial software that if the new software that you're bringing to them for freight forwarding does not interact with it automatically, they don't want to embrace it, even though that means the company will not succeed or grow 10 times in the next year. If it means the stagnation, they'll prefer stagnation over their own personal gains. I just can't stand it. And then you have to make an appeal to the owners and say, hey, you need to look through this, beyond this curtain or this veil, and just, embrace the system. I guarantee you everybody will be fine. It is a full-fledged accounting system in CargoWise. Let's go with it. And we've proven ourselves time and time, and sometimes we can, and they come back and say, we're ready for CargoWise's accounting module as well.
Right.
So I mean, it's we don't give up that easily, but we don't want to be hard selling too. Sometimes we just have them do what they want because we know where they're coming back for more.
It's a known characteristic, familiar heuristics. People love what they know. So it takes a strong individual to think outside their comfort zone and say, I've been doing this every day. I'm good at it. I can do it in my sleep, but there's a better way to do it. And I'm going to disrupt my life for a while to do it a better way. That takes a strong individual to buy into that, especially if they've got short-timers disease, like Amna says. They don't need that headache.
Well, bravery and courage. I think one other thing is no perceived ROI. How do you both deal with that, right? Because at the end of the day, you might not see it right away, but like Amna said, you are going to grow the business 10 times once you have some of the software in place.
The ROI is measured a number of different ways depending on the organization.
Okay.
Not everybody is good about measuring how they do things today. So now we're going to do it somehow differently tomorrow. And how do we measure that metric against which we weren't measuring before? I've had people measure their return by saying everybody's leaving at 5 o'clock and it's a better place to work than how we did in the past. But everyone's doing their own internal studies. We try to take our customer partners through it, and we have 9 phases of productivity. So you got a manual system, you got to have a computerized system. Now let's go to an enterprise level. Now let's do workflow and workflow automation that Amna does so well, and working with them. And each rung of that ladder, each step of that stairway, they're bringing out more and more productivity. And they're measuring that. I mean, people might be measuring it differently based on file counts or tonnage or revenue per individual, but they know how to measure ROI. And I think that's why some of this experimental investment or some of these golden silver bullet visibility plays in the past are starting to be scrutinized more of exactly what are they getting out of that.
Right. And what does that look like? How long does it take? But you're right. ROI means different things to different people, just like visibility does as well. And it depends what that organization is looking for. So let's talk about the solutions that CargoWise are using to break down some of these barriers for the customers and deliver better visibility across the industry. So container automation, for example, is really tackling the lack of resources barrier by eliminating manual processes and streamlining the supply chain, right? So Amna, tell us about this particular product and talk to us about how it goes over with your customers.
I mean, so customers definitely like to embrace they want to get the automated feedback from CargoWise or any, system they can get their hands on that would give them, where's my freight right now? That's basically the question. Where is my freight at any given point in time? So CargoWise works off of global container tracking. It has the automation in there. Neo is the platform that is coming through fairly quickly here soon. And that would give, right now too, even like there's a glimpse of Neo in CargoWise where you can actually go into the console side, look at the ship, and you can see it on a map where it is at a given point in time. So, people have been asking for it for a very long time. It's now there. And they embrace it and they love what they see and what they're looking at. Given like one of the questions we were just talking about was the ROI. As a financial person, with the ROI, return on investment, on what they're doing versus what they were doing before CargoWise. Basically, when I actually introduce the system to them and I go through, okay, here's your system management training, and it's an hour I take with them, with the senior management and the owners, and I say, this is what you have at your fingertips. Anytime you look at what your shipments are doing, you did not have before. You can have the same amount of people do more and basically return a bigger investment for your company. And when you give them the tools, just like, global container tracking or the, visibility you're talking about, it's not just the visibility on water. For owners, it could be visibility of financials. It could be visibility of what am I returning? what is my biggest what is my biggest sorry you guys, what
Okay.
is my biggest oh my god, it's not coming through. What is my biggest trade lane?
There you
So
go.
you got to edit this one, Sarah.
I
Sorry.
will.
So what is my biggest trade lane? They are unaware sometimes, these owners, that what is my biggest trade lane? Where do I do the biggest amount of business from? And when you actually give them CargoWise and you show them those reports, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know this is my biggest trade lane.
Right.
This is where I do the most business from. Is it air or ocean? What do I do most? And who does the most files in my company? Who's working the hardest? And they can actually see it granular. So they can actually see the revenues, the cost of sales, the salaries against each department. So where are they more? I guess they're more like into where there's more human resources expended, and there's where there's less. And maybe that department is doing more and not leaving at 5 o'clock, like Jean said. So
Right.
with that visibility, you can actually manage your business better. You can actually put your resources or work with that agent closer where your biggest trade lane is. And that's the visibility that CargoWise gives you. So it's not just the visibility on water or, where my freight is. That gives owners more time to expand like on other things.
Yeah.
And maybe spend more time on, okay, now I want to automate this, this, and this. So it's not just the visibility of where my freight is. It's a lot of other things that people can use and work with.
Hey,
That's a
listen,
that's a
I would have liked to have left at 5 o'clock when I was working on reports. I mean, there were 12-hour days, I wasn't leaving
Yeah.
till 6 or 7 o'clock just because of the pile of files I was going through, and we didn't have the right software. Sorry, Jean, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to compliment Amna. I said earlier, there's two areas to look at visibility: your internal operation, supply chain visibility, detention, demurrage, where how do we manage the supply chain, and then the customer facing visibility of how you're performing with them, even if it's customs entries. But the third area, as Amna pointed out, is visibility of managing your own business. Yeah. And it's pretty eye-opening. Just because you have a customer that keeps you busy, it isn't always a customer that is a good customer to have.
That's
Exactly.
so true. And I think there's an element of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Jean, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, that gets over my head quite a bit, but if we take a look, it's probably more machine learning versus artificial intelligence, and we're working on both phases. And much of that, in its purest form, probably comes with the predictive ETA. This is what we're getting from the carrier, or this is what we're getting from different sources. And then with container automation, we call it container automation because it's not necessarily a single feed from a carrier or a port or satellite tracking. It's various sources of data that's coming in. And now we need to normalize that data and use machine learning to tell that logistics service professional of all the information that's out there, of all the noise. And you said it at the beginning, Sarah, more data isn't better data. What is the best ETA or the best current status that we have for that point in time? And that's part of it. And then, we're taking a look at all of these different AI tools out there and decide, which one can have value for what we're doing every day in our business, just as our customers are. And, you've got to decide what your problem is before you decide what your solution is.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. But one of the things I like about what you just said is cutting through the noise. There's a lot of noise when it comes to technologies and service providers, software providers, people that you can work with, and technologies that you can work with for various different things. And you want to be able to cut through that noise and be able to do what you do on a daily basis to provide you with that right data, the data that you need in a way that makes things way more efficient and allows supply chain professionals, logistics professionals to do what they do best on a day-to-day basis. And some of that comes from strategic thinking. It comes from the creative thinking as well. And being able to give that time back is invaluable. Now, I think you also have workflow and tracking, and that starts to address some of those issues that Amna, you were talking about employee resistance. Can you talk about how that makes their jobs much easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can actually have workflow and tracking in CargoWise, whereby you can actually dictate to the system, hey, this is what exactly I want. And this person, the people at any company, as long as you have a workflow or, their milestones set up, you really don't have to touch the file multiple times. And
Mm.
that's what we believe in as a freight forwarding logistics consultancy. We believe less touches to the same job over and over again, streamline everything. From the time it starts, okay, if the automation is coming from an agent, it will be fed into CargoWise if that agent is on CargoWise. If not on CargoWise, we can, instead of E2E, we can do EDI into the system. And once that, information comes in, the documents also can come in, and they reside in CargoWise. Once that's done, the employee can actually print out their documents. Printing, I don't mean literally printing or emailing them out, is pretty much what I mean. But they can actually have workflows in there where, as soon as this happens, like let's say the ETA or ATA is populated, then a document gets generated to the customer, or anytime there's an update to the shipment, a document gets, or an email gets generated with a document attached that goes to the customer. So people don't even have to touch the system multiple times to produce that information to their customer. And that's what CargoWise has had for the longest time, and people don't embrace it easily. I mean, there are a lot of customers that have been on CargoWise for 10 years, and they don't know about these functionalities that are in CargoWise that they never use. So I say to them, hey, you're using a Maserati of a system as a Mazda, or sorry, nothing against Mazdas, but like a car that you would just drive manually. You don't even know what the potential here. And that's when we come in and we, indulge with them and make sure that we get them to the optimal level of usage in that system, in the system.
I want to go back and work in logistics, because all I'm thinking about is how hard my job was and how
Maybe
much
me and Jean are
easier
probably...
it would be today.
You get close to CargoWise and you think, God, I'd love to get back into forwarding again.
Right?
How I could run the business. And then you get your sensibility and you go, no, But Amna's right about the workflow. I mean, you mentioned the noise and everything that has to happen and all the different files and all the different tasks and where do you start? And there's boards to tell you to do. But, when Amna works with customers, and we really get this machine tuned quite well. And it's important because everybody's unique, special, and different. Even though they're international forwarders, how they do it, that's their secret sauce. So being able to industrialize that process that they feel makes them so strong, and then automate it. So we can build these tasks and break them up and assign them to the right person with the right capability, with the right priority at the right time. And all they got to do is go from the top down and start knocking off tasks. The machine tells them what to do instead of having them try to figure out what to do. And then let's take it a step further, as Amna said. Let's have the machine do it for us, so we don't even have to have the people, punching down the list. As far as vessel arrives, we get a ATA, and the arrival notice goes out automatically.
Exactly.
I mean, if I could just have, done the check mark every time, crossed the to-do list off online, that would have been amazing. And I almost feel like now with a CargoWise system, I could gamify it for myself and make my day-to-day just that much more fun. So I am super excited for all of the logistics professionals out there right now, especially if they are using CargoWise. Now, just remind us real quick, Jean, who is an ideal client for you? Like, if I'm sitting in the audience listening to this, when should I give you a call?
International domestic forwarder, customs house, broker, warehouse. We say a logistics service professional. So they're not the BCO, but they're actually executing freight on behalf of others. Now we can break that down further. The larger you are, it's not a scalable size. If I'm a single office international forwarder, I want the same tools that my large multinational, competitors have. And I can prove that I can run it quite effectively. But the more broader and comprehensive your organization is, if you're operating across, 15 different countries, and you've got customs and you've got forwarding and you need integrated job costing and accounting, the more touch points you have, the more you value in what CargoWise has. Because, we might have a small competitor who can do this piece of it in this country, and that's fine if that's all you do. But boy, once you start having more touch points, CargoWise is the only one who can do what they want to be done.
Well, I'm thinking about how much fun you can have. I mean, that's all I'm thinking about right now, but I'm a bit of a supply chain nerd. Anyways, Amna, I think you have a story that you want to share with us. Tell us about this story, this case study of using CargoWise and how somebody benefited from it.
So basically, we were in a room and somebody had actually wanted to procure CargoWise because it had a better, obviously visibility into the system, where their freight was at any given point in time. Having their agents go on the web tracker, be able to look into, well, the bookings, the quotations that have been sent out, or if you had like any documents that they wanted to download, they can do it off of the web tracker. And they were really in the room for a new software. So, and CargoWise was a no-brainer for them, and that's where that's how they went for it.
Amazing. Amazing. I love those kinds of stories. And when I say fun as a logistics, professional, I mean that's what is going to keep people going to work, right? That's what they want. They want to have fun at their jobs. And so that is one of the reasons why I keep bringing it up, because it's really important. Now, finally, then, can you share your top tips for achieving better supply chain visibility? Amna, I'm going to start with you.
I want to defer this one to Jean. Like, I'll kind of go off of that, if that's okay, Jean.
Yeah, no problem.
That's fine. I feel that you need to control your visibility through execution. So if you're looking at an aggregator there of visibility data, the key is through execution. So don't stop with visibility. Seeing your goods arriving over the water or through the air is one thing. But the most important part becomes that final leg. So how is that moving to the door? Because that's ultimately what we're paid for. So how can we get that granular visibility? And that comes through execution, and execution through optimization. So of all the different options out there, what's the best option for that final mile, that door delivery? When we do, then let's automate that booking with that dray carrier or that cartage agent. And then because we're executing, and I said at the beginning, if you're executing, then you get better visibility back. So getting that visibility data into your system, which is much more granular and valuable to your customers.
Yeah, and across the organization too, internally, externally, to your C-suite, visibility counts on all aspects. Amna, did you want to leave everybody with one thing to think about?
Yeah, I think Jean had it right with the execution. I think we're still in a very archaic industry. It's, we have the mom and pop trucking companies, which will never give you access to where they are on the road. And that's what they enjoy. They just want to drive a semi from point A to point B. So execution, as Jean said, like where we can get better is the tools we have, execute them properly, optimize them to the fullest potential, and not leave anything unturned, any stone unturned. Really, that's where it boils down to. So I think that's really what I would actually say is execution. I mean, we live in this day and age where we have air tags. We can put it in our bag, and we can see where it is at any given point in time. So why can't we do it with trucks? So it's not far. It's coming. It's going to be it's going to take the industry by a storm, but there's a lot of, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of litigation and things that people have to get through, but execution is the biggest one that comes to mind.
Absolutely. And air tags, even if you're a small to medium-sized trucking company, go get some air tags and provide visibility as well to your customers. So what an amazing start to our mini series. The past few years have seen global supply chains grow in length and complexity as more and more businesses expand their footprints in search of new markets, revenue generators, and suppliers. These modern supply chains have been designed to achieve increasingly ambitious targets with shorter lead times, smaller margins, and faster delivery times, leaving them at times vulnerable and unable to effectively respond to disruptive events. And unfortunately, global supply chains continue to experience unprecedented disruption. So organizations must act fast to improve the productivity and efficiency of their operations, and data visibility is key to unlocking the agile yet robust supply chains of the future. If you want to find out more, you can check them out at cargowise.com. And a massive thanks to Jean and Amna for joining me today, and to the team at WiseTech Global for making this episode happen. Make sure to tune in for episode 2 of our brand new mini series. I'll be joined by Craig Sealing, CargoWise's product manager for customs and compliance in North America, and a special guest to dive beneath the surface of compliance and reveal its true cost, the cost of non-investment in compliance software and the cost of running multiple systems across your operations. If you have an eye on reducing costs, mitigating risk, and tackling emergent compliance-related issues like cybercrime, this is a must-listen to episode. I'll see you then. Amna and Jean, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks, Sarah.